conclave. Our next speaker is someone who has put India on the global electronics manufacturing map. Mr. Sunil Vachani is the founder and executive chairman of Dixon Technologies. Launched in 1993 from a modest rented Noida unit, now the largest homegrown electronic manufacturing group in India. With over 30 years of experience, he has been instrumental in steering Dixon from TVs into leadership in smartphone and telecom hardware manufacturing, a key contributor to Make in India. He has earned many accolades, including Person of the Year 2025, EY Entrepreneur of the Year, and DataQuest Atmanirbhar Bharat Champion. I request you all for an applause for a warm welcome for Mr. Vachani. Hello, sir. Please. I would first request Mr. Vachani to share his thoughts with the investor community, and then Chirag and Neerav would join in for a rapid-fire question session. Thank you.
Why don't you join me on this thing, sitting alone on the stage is you get very lonely. Good afternoon, and thank you, MK, for inviting me today. I was told that normally it's very difficult to fill up the hall for the post-lunch session, so I'm glad to see the good attendance. I hope it's because of the interest in the EMS industry, and I hope I can sustain this level of interest for the next 1 hour, so that I keep you all seated in the hall. So I thought what I would do today is talk about the huge opportunity that exists for us as a company, as an industry, and as a country. I'm sure a lot of you are aware about this opportunity. I'll also talk about some of the challenges that we are facing. Also talk about where Dixon plans to be in the next few years, and how we are looking at transforming ourselves as an organization to make sure we reach there. I think if we look at the overall opportunity, the total ICT market, which is the information, communication, technology, and electronics, is about $3 trillion, right? And India is just only about 100 billion, right, or 120 billion. So I think a long way to go, before we can say that yes, India has become the next hub for manufacturing for the world. And I think it's very clear that we at Dixon want to be in the top 10 in the EMS category in the next maybe couple of years, and maybe for surely top 5 in the next 5 years or so. And I'm very clear that what brought us here to where we are, Dixon will not really get us to where we want to. And if I could really, pinpoint a few pillars that we should focus on, I feel that we should focus on again as a company, as an industry, and even as a country. I think the first pillar surely will be scale. I feel that if we have to be globally competitive, we need a very large scale. For that, we need mega factories. I think gone are the days, where you could look at setting up small factories to cater to just, let's say, 5% of the domestic market. You need mega factories which can cater to the world and which can be globally competitive. So we at Dixon ourselves are setting up very large format factories. A new factory is coming up for manufacturing mobile phones with about 1 million square feet at a single location in Noida. We've also acquired land in Yamuna Expressway to build an even bigger factory, which is going to be even double that size. That's going to come up. So these factories are going to be digitally transformed right up there on the Industry 4.0 standards. Second, I feel that we really need to focus on building a supply chain in the country, making sure that we have the supply chain here, because that's the lack of it is definitely adding to the disability factors in the country. I'm sure a lot of you know that the value addition that we have in product, let's say like mobile phones, is only about 18 to 20%, right, which is very, very low. But you'll also be happy to know that we plan to take this up to almost 40% in the next couple of years. And if we do that, we would be right at par with countries like Vietnam, Thailand, because as you know, a large part of the mobile phone is still the semiconductor, where some of the Taiwanese companies and US companies like Qualcomm have a major share. So we at Dixon also are planning to deepen our manufacturing. We have plans to get into the display assembly. Very soon a factory is coming up at Noida. This is in partnership with one of the display fab companies called HKC. We're also planning to get into the camera module segment, and we have recently taken a majority stake in a company called Q-Tech, which is one of the top 5 companies we believe in the camera module segment. We've also tied up with a company for mechanicals, for doing mechanicals for mobile phones and IT hardware. So with this ecosystem coming in, I feel there'll be a huge strength that we'll be adding to the company and to the industry. The third S, I think, is skills, right? We need to ensure that we have a large pool of skilled manpower, a team, not only at the operator level, but at the middle management, at the senior management level, because I think we're very clear that the factories of tomorrow, or the factories in the next 5 years, are going to be very different from the factories that you see today. They're going to be completely digitally transformed. There's going to be a lot of data, there's going to be a lot of analysis, of course, a lot of automation also. And you need to skill people to ensure that they're ready to handle this transformation that is coming. And I think the last piece, the last pillar, the fourth pillar would be design. And interestingly, we were just having a short discussion on this before lunch. And I think that Indian EMS companies will have to migrate from just prescriptive manufacturing to ODM, which is your own design and manufacturing. I think a lot will have to happen for that. We will require a partnership between industry and academia. We'll require industry to invest substantially a large part of their profits, I would say, revenue, because EMS revenue is a pass-through, into design. And I'm sure a lot of companies would be doing that. So I think these are the 4 pillars that we'll need to focus on. But I can tell you that we at Dixon ourselves are going to be now investing in digital transformation. There's going to be huge focus on that to ensure that our factories are going to be ready, for the future. So I'm often asked that, where is the next growth coming from? Because since we are the investor meet, that's, I'm sure, the question on everybody's mind, that, the company has grown phenomenally in the last, 10, 15 years. The industry has grown, but where do we go from here, right? I'm sure that must be the question at the top of the mind. So if I can really highlight a few areas where we are very excited about and we feel that there's going to be massive growth. The first is the IT hardware industry, right? And as all of you know, that recently we have gone into manufacturing IT hardware products for some of the biggest brands. And the reason I'm pretty excited about this is because first, there is a large import substitution opportunity. We as a country are importing IT hardware worth almost $15 billion. So we have to first address that, and I think that can be a huge opportunity. Second, the opportunity for us in the component manufacturing. I already talked about a foray into display modules, camera modules. But what is very interesting there is that, we'll be addressing first, of course, our in-house requirement for, the components that go into mobile phones, and these components also go into laptops, and our television screen, our smart watches. But very interestingly, when we decided to get into display modules, we found a huge interest from the automobile manufacturers, right? Because a lot of the automobiles companies, are using displays, large displays. So we're very excited about the opportunity in our industry as well as this, option of going into other industries where there is a very large requirement. The third area which is of huge interest to us and we're very excited is our recent partnerships and our joint ventures, that we have announced. So recently we announced a joint venture with one of the largest Taiwanese ODMs, Inventec, which is into IT hardware. There is a very large opportunity for making India as the next hub for manufacturing for the world. We have recently announced a tie-up with Vivo, which is in terms of volume today, it's the largest brand in the country, and we feel with this, one would be able to get a large share of manufacturing. We have also recently done a joint venture with Signify, which is come out of Philips Lighting, and now Signify, of course, is the largest lighting brand in the world with Philips. And we're very excited about the opportunity of making India the hub for manufacturing lighting products for the world. We also have joint venture partnerships coming up with, as I mentioned, HKC, another company for doing mechanicals. So all these partnerships are going to bring huge strength. They're going to build a moat around the business, and most importantly, they'll give us an opportunity to address global markets, which we were probably missing for some time. Finally, I think the opportunity also of doing more and more ODM products. I'm sure you know that we have gone into now manufacturing products like refrigerators, where we are not just manufacturing, but we are designing our own products. And in a very short period of time, when we started this venture hardly about a year back, and we're doubling the capacity to almost 2 million pieces a year, and getting into product categories like freezers, Visi coolers. So we are very excited about this ODM opportunity in more and more areas, and very soon you'll also see that happening in IT hardware and some more areas. So this is where the next level of growth will come from, and of course, finally, the exports. Because we feel that, in spite of the situation that we've seen in the last few months where there are headwinds as far as exports is concerned, I'm very, very convinced that this is a short-term issue. We are going to negotiate a way out of this. Because eventually, if you look at this, how this whole thing started, that everybody was looking at an alternative to our northern neighbor, right? And it's not possible that, we reach a situation where the tariffs are more than what we have on them. So I think it's just a, in university view, they have to call that the negotiation 3.0 class. So that is what is happening, negotiation at its best. And I'm sure this is going to get settled. And eventually, India will emerge as a hub for manufacturing all over the world, and we are very, very excited about this opportunity for exports. So thank you. I'm not going to take more time. We'd rather have an interactive session than me talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. Excellent introduction to the industry, and you've sort of preempted some of the questions. So I'll straight away get more into the company specifics. So I'm just taking off from where you talked about the joint ventures. So I can completely comprehend the fact that you need access to technology and stuff like that, and therefore camera modules and stuff like that. But interestingly, you also have been able to do ventures on the product side, which is trying to buy the market, which is, let's say, Vivo, and now Inventec. Now, to me, that's slightly difficult because, it's already an existing product and they're sharing a part of the revenues with you, means we are bringing something great on the table. And this is a Taiwanese company, so there's no regulatory arbitrage. What is this core ethos of Dixon that allows you to attract these joint ventures? And this is a big part of your value strategy.
So I'll tell you, I think why we feel that these partnerships are very important. So let's say, we talk about partnership with Signify. Now, if you see the lighting market in India wasn't growing, right? In fact, some periods, some products, there's been a degrowth. So it's very clear to us that if we have to be big manufacturers of lighting products, we need to be addressing global markets. And this is one industry where our customer has a very dominant share, not only in India, but the global markets, right? And what better way to address the global markets, other than just tying up with them. And this company is not into manufacturing, right, per se as a business model. So they were happy to tie up also with someone who can also address, this option or this issue of our neighbor plus one, right? And that's how this tie-up happened. And I think the other tie-ups that you talked about, I think are very, very significant because if you look at a product like laptops, right, you see that a lot of the Taiwanese companies are moving up the value chain. Right, they're getting into products like servers where they're making great profits, massive amount of money, and we feel that this space that is there is kind of going to get vacated for Indian companies over a period of time, and there could be a huge possibility of partnering with these companies, ODM companies, and addressing the global markets. So I think it's a win-win situation for both.
Just want to come back on that. Does, let's say, for example, Inventec have an option to do 100% sub and come in India and try and replicate what they've done in, let's say, Taiwan? And they've chosen to go with you, which is what I'm trying to get at, that, that there is some process or there is some DNA that they're looking. Is it access to a domestic market or something like that?
You see, if you see the history of Taiwanese companies, they don't go to new countries very easily and invest. Now, even with India and Taiwan, I think we've been trying to get this partnership going maybe for the last 25 years. I remember leading a delegation of CII and Elsina very, very long back. And since then, we've been trying to convince them, look, India is the place to invest, right? But they've been very conservative. But I'm glad we were finally able to convince them, and they realized that they need to come to India. And I think they realized that for India, for them to be in India, you need some local domain knowledge, right, which we will provide. And also, you're absolutely right. They're also coming because of the huge domestic market, that $15 billion opportunity that is there. So it's a combination of that they've come and they've tied up with us. And I'm sure it's going to be a huge success, and we're going to, address global markets with this partnership.
Sorry, just one more question before I pass on to Chirag. When we talk about Vivo, and obviously they understand the manufacturing as well, do you think that you are more cost competitive compared to Vivo's in-house manufacturing or comparable levels?
So, see, Vivo was looking for an Indian partner, right? And I won't say that it's because of, we were lower cost as compared to them, because of course they run a very efficient operations themselves. But I think there is a kind of a feeling now that, the Chinese companies also need to partner with Indian companies rather than having a complete Chinese ecosystem right from end to end, to manufacturing, to brand, to distribution. And I think the area that they chose to partner was first with manufacturing. So I'm glad that, we could stitch up this partnership because, as I mentioned, that they're a dominant brand, they're huge. And what is positive is that they could also be, looking at using India for exports, like some of the other companies are doing. For another brand, as you know, in fact, everybody knows Motorola, that is using India as a base for addressing US markets. and their exports have gone up substantially from almost zero levels to 2,000 crores and maybe about 6 to 7,000 crores this year. So I think if more and more companies do this, from our neighboring country, it'd be fantastic for the ecosystem.
On the export front, how do we see our export competitiveness? I think you mentioned that we are roughly at about 20% value addition now, and probably we would be reaching 40% over the next couple of years. And also there is also a supply chain diversification story that is happening globally. So how, let's say, we can move up in terms of exports for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of numbers, but more importantly in terms of export competitiveness? How are we compared to, let's say, what we were earlier and probably next 2-3 years?
No, that's an excellent point. If you remember how the PLI scheme came in, right? And it was a study done by the industry and some of the chambers of commerce in the industry that what are really the disability factors in India when we are exporting, and how much does it quantify to? What's really the percentage? And this study was done, and we found that yes, we were not really globally competitive, and the reasons, of course, were obvious: the high logistics cost, the lack of a supply chain, most importantly, the lack of scale. Right? We didn't have scale for any of the products, and that's how the PLI came in. Right, and they calculated this percentage, and there was a great lot of back and forth between the industry and the government, and we came out with I think a brilliant scheme, and I'll tell you why PLI was brilliant. So anyway, so we came out of the scheme, the government came out of the scheme, and I think it was a huge success. And but still now, even now, we feel that, and there's another study which is in the offing to look at those disability factors, and I think on all the counts, we are just, it's work in progress. I wouldn't say that, we can compete globally without any subsidies, because all the factors that I talked about have just started now. You see, the component ecosystems, investment has just started. The ECMS scheme has just come in, right? The scale is already built, but we still have a long way to go. But I'm very confident that in the next 4 to 5 years, we will reach a stage where we will not require any subsidy from the government. We'll have all those boxes checked, and we will be globally competitive, and India will be looked at seriously as a destination for exporting these products.
Sir, also wanted to check, as you mentioned that from, let's say, a prescriptive manufacturing to now, let's say, more into technology-oriented component ecosystem, and then at some point of time, we'll start design as well, especially into IT hardware products. We're already doing in some of the products. So how do we let's say, the managerial, let's say, in terms of the approach, in terms of the rescaling, as you mentioned, how do we prepare our organization for, let's say, a transformation in terms of culture, capabilities to, let's say, move in terms of value add?
So, a lot of people ask me about culture in the organization, that how do we, build that culture? I think it's we all know that culture is not a switch, that you switch on and switch off. It's basically the values that you follow, the decisions that you take in the good times and difficult times, in the organization, and that's how the culture is built, right? And I think that's how things are in any organization, right? That it's kind of you at the top you kind of define that these are the things that are important to me, and I think we in Dixon have really charted out a roadmap. The digital transformation is extremely important to us, right? And in that direction, the company is recently tied up with TechM as a partner for this. We are working with a few Indian companies. Each of our factories is going through rolling out an MES, which is a manufacturing excellence system software. So these are the kind of things that you do, and it's kind of a message, right, that comes down, that look, this is important to me. And I think that goes even for the country, right? People ask me that, what happened in the country? How did we suddenly become, good, or at least so-called good at manufacturing? And I said, it's all about mindset, right? The minute the mindset changes, everything changes, right? I remember 20 years back, going to meet, bureaucrats and saying that you're wasting your time, that manufacturing is not for us. Our strength lies in software. But suddenly when that message came down, right, that, almost 15 years back, that make in India, make India the hub for manufacturing, suddenly everybody started saying that, tell us what can we do, right? So that's that mindset change which happens in countries, which happens in organizations.
Yeah. Just last question, and probably we can open the floor for Q&A from the audience. In terms of, financials, we have been, let's say, phenomenally strong, particularly in terms of return ratios, apart from the growth that we have been delivering. As we get into component manufacturing and many other stuff, how do we see that shaping up over the next 3 to 5 years?
So yeah, I know that's a concern area, for some of the investors, that once we get into the component manufacturing, what will happen to the return ratios, because the dynamics in the component industry are different. But I think, a lot of people would be comparing, let's say, component industry globally, or let's say the industry of module manufacturing globally, and comparing to what we are doing in India. So India for a few years is going to be different, and I'll tell you why. One, as you know, that the central government is going to subsidize almost 50% of your investment capex. The state government is also going to incentivize up to 50%. So 100% of your capex is coming back, right, in few years. That's very different from what you see in other countries. Two, we also have tariffs on modules. So if you take auto, there's 20% tariff on the display modules. And similar, this thing is in mobile, which is about 11%. So these tariffs and also these subsidies are going to ensure that our ratios are much better than what you see globally. Also, let's not forget that India will have a very massive scale of manufacturing. So to give you an idea about the mobile phone industry, when we were looking at camera modules, only 20% of the camera modules sold, or consumed in the country are made in India. So there's a long way to go for us, right? And if we are, let's say, ourselves consuming, modules for 60 million mobile phones, that's a huge requirement. So to answer your question, we are confident that we will maintain the ratios even when we get into the module business and the component business. Things could be very different when we evaluate something like a display fab, right? But again, to clarify that we are only evaluating that option, and a lot of things will have to be clarified before we really take that plunge.
Nirav? I think we can open the floor for questions from the audience.
You had mentioned that you are going to increase value addition from 18% to 40%, right? Can you just tell us through the steps of this migration to 40%, and whether this is generalizable for Indian industry as a whole? Are there some pointers here that will enable us to capture a much bigger share of the value add?
So the first step in this localization journey is going to be for camera modules. When we do that, almost 10% of the value gets captured. The balance 10% is coming from the display module, and then about 3 to 4% from mechanicals, right, depending on the model. So with these three components, we'll straight away take that jump from 20% to 40%. And you'll be happy to know that countries which have done this have taken a very, very long time. So as I mentioned to you, in Thailand, some of our customers are still not using an IT hardware local display for laptops, right? In Vietnam also, after so many years and very large, volume of manufacturing, the value addition at this level. So I think India would have done a tremendous job if we can bring up this value addition in a very, very short period of time. To your second question, no, that's not the general level of value addition that we've achieved. You'll be happy to know that in products like refrigerators, washing machines, white goods, even lighting, the level of value addition is much higher at about 65 to 70%. And now with the PLI scheme that came in for components, especially for air conditioners, I believe the value addition has gone up to almost 75 to 80%. And similar is the case in our refrigerator plant. So different across different segments, but much higher than mobile. See, as I mentioned, mobile is a typical industry where a large part of the bill of material is a semiconductor, which even China doesn't, manufacture right now for mobile phones. It's still Qualcomm and MTK which dominate the industry globally.
How long will we need this crutch of the PLI? I mean, is there a point of time where we see that even if the PLI was withdrawn, we would still be able to hold our own in a competitive global industry?
So as I mentioned, you see the PLI came for a specific reason, right? To build Indian champions, to build large scale, to bring global value chains to the country, and of course deepen the manufacturing. And a lot of these things, right, are still work in progress. And let's appreciate that as a country, we have managed to bring in a very large global value chain to the country, right, which is the Apple ecosystem, which is very, very significant, right? And once these large GVCs come to India, they're here to stay, right? And they'll create huge employment. There's a massive benefit that the country will get. So especially at this time, when large GVCs are coming, right, we're in the process of becoming a big hub, we feel that it would not be the right time to suddenly take away the scheme. And let's not forget that in terms of revenue, it's a big revenue earner for the government, right? I'm sure a lot of us know that before the PLI came in, we used to have this scheme called MEIS, right? Where any exporter used to get 4 to 5% on the FOB value of exports. So if I was exporting and my exports went down by 50% in a year, I would still get that 4%. But the whole concept of PLI is that there is a base year, and anything that you're increasing on top of that, you'll get incentive. And let's also see, you see the GST was increased from 12 to 18% on mobile. And there has been an incremental production of more than 3 lakh crores. So look at the revenue that has come to the government. And out of the 40,000 crores that was earmarked for the scheme, only 20,000 crores has been spent. And this year maybe another 7,000-8,000 crores. So still a massive amount of money that is left on the table.
I have a couple of questions. Yep. So, audio. This is Bhavin from SBI Mutual Fund.
Could you just, identify.
Yeah, this is Bhavin from SBI Mutual Fund. So, couple of questions. One is you're signing joint ventures, partnership with some of the Chinese companies where you would be a significant majority and they would be significant minority. So, in this case, why are they agreeing to part with technology, know-how, despite having minority stake? And are you also kind of giving them some royalty share so that they are able to impart the technology and give you the know-how skill set?
So let me give you an example of a particular vertical, which is the display module. So as a company, we'll be hopefully reaching a volume of 60 million smartphones per year, right? Hopefully in a couple of years. So that's a very large market for any component company globally. And look at what they're getting. They're able to sell the glass, which is a product of a display fab, right, to a country like India, which is probably going to be one of the largest markets for them, right? So they're getting a huge market in India, right? And they're getting to partner with a company which has already stitched up these partnerships with brands, and they kind of get an assured business also, right? So that's a big thing. To your second question that, would they part with technology? I think, you absorb technology. No one really, takes you toward this thing and says, listen, these are the things that you should be doing, right? And we have, I think one of the most successful examples is the auto component industry. When Maruti came in, right, and there were these spate of joint ventures, partnerships which happened between Indian and Japanese companies. And I think I'm proud to say that today some of these companies are, they export to all over the world. They're on their own. They've understood how this thing works, and they're great companies. So I think we see similar thing happening in the electronic component industry, where these partnerships will lead to much bigger things in future.
The other question was in terms of the risk, given the geopolitics.
There is louder, please.
Yep. So the other question is on the risk that we see, and if you could. So now, given the geopolitics, the Trump trade war, there is a possibility that India is pivoting towards China, and the barriers that we created towards the Chinese is a big tailwind for EMS companies. If that were to change, what risk do you see, and what is the plan B in your for you to mitigate this?
See, when it comes to partnerships between India and Chinese companies, it's a very delicate matter, right? Because, one, we have this issue at the border, and also there is the security vetting that has to be done. So I think the good thing is that all these ventures are going through a huge scrutiny process, right? Taking a longer than time which is desired, but they're going through a process. So anything that comes out of it, one can be rest assured that it's gone through every ministry, important ministry in the government, right? And after that, it's been approved. So we're hoping that once that is done, it should be a smooth ride after that. But if you were to ask me that what should be the template for, between Chinese and Indian companies, I think we should look at the relationship that the Taiwanese and the Chinese companies have had, right? You see that how the relationship has grown. They've had issues, on the territorial issues, the same issues that we are facing. And they've had these issues for a longest time. But see that how China has got technology from Taiwan, and how Taiwan has used China to get a low-cost base of manufacturing. So I think that's the kind of template that we need to have, that how can we, rely on each other's strengths and grow stronger, right? And they get a market and we get the technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Yeah. So in India, we have developed the ecosystem for the mobile phone assembly, right? But recently, there was a news that Foxconn and Pegatron was not able to source the machinery from China, because China does not want to shift the manufacturing to the Apple. So first question is, like, do we face any problem in terms of sourcing of the machine? And second is, like, government is trying to increase the value addition in the mobile phone assembly. So can we also expect the manufacturing ecosystem of the manufacturing of the machine in India? What are your thoughts on this part? Thank you.
See, our sector is a little different, right? When you look at, let's say, the key machines that are used in, I'm talking about the EMS industry right now, I'm not talking about the components. When you look at the EMS industry, the main machines that we use are the SMT, the surface mount technology, right? And I'm sure all of you have seen these factories. And SMT machines are globally two giants. There's Fuji and there's Panasonic. So it's completely with the Japanese and a few European companies. So there is no issue as such. Now, even when it comes to components, right? And I talk about the example of, let's say, display. A lot of these machines are not made in China. They're more, Japanese, German, and European technology. So we don't see that as a problem. Yes, there were some instances where, some machines were stopped. But these are temporary, issues that some manufacturers face. But I think it was overcome very, very quickly. And at the end of the day, let's not forget that everybody wants a market, right? So nobody is going to ruin the biggest market that is there for them. Right. So today, if I'm talking about displays, the display person has to sell his, the glass, the pure cell, right? And similarly, the other guys need to sell, and which is a bigger market than India. So there is a, kind of a dependence also that is there.
Yeah, so this is Sachin Shah from MK Investment Managers. The promoter holding is now below 30%. The promoter holding is now below 30%. So any threshold that you would like to maintain as we go ahead, anything that you have, can you just share those thoughts?
So first, let me give you an idea about the family holding. So I'm as the largest shareholder from the family. It's just marginally below 30%. But as a family, we continue to hold, shares almost about 43, 44%, right? And there are my other family members who are not part of the day-to-day running. They've kind of left it to me, for this, and me doing the hard work. And so that's, the family, how the structure is. Now, yeah, there has, I presume you're talking about recently where there was, a small part of the holding which was sold from the family. And I've clarified that before, that you see, as a promoter, I do not have any other company in terms of as a partnership company or a side business or nothing like that. I'm all in as far as Dixon is concerned. And I tell investors that you should not be worried about, the holding going from 31 point whatever, 29 point something. Rather, you should be looking at that is the mind share and the time share, of the top management completely focused on this particular, business, right? And the day it's not, that's the time I think, one should start getting worried or thinking about the, what is going to happen. But as of now, as I mentioned, that I'm totally all in. I'm extremely passionate about this business, and I'm not going to rest until India emerges as the next hub for manufacturing, and Dixon is in the top 5 companies in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Bharat here, Bharat Shah. While our ambition to be in the top players in the global arena is very commendable, and so far we have taken all the steps in the right direction to fulfill that. But even the recent events suggest that how fragile the overall ecosystem can get, where one quixotic or temperamental individual one day announces something and the other day wants to change it, you can't really set up manufacturing projects based on such kind of temperamental decision-making process. But here we have that kind of arena suddenly thrust upon us. We are also seeing, so clearly it looks like that America, instead of being a friend, is probably busy stymieing the rise of India. China, in any case, has been very busy trying to do several things, whether machines or rare earth magnet or people to engineers to be sent and withdrawn and all of that. All these are visible tactics to stymie or curtail the rise. Given all of that, in a business where margins are wafer thin and capital efficiency comes because we turn the assets very efficiently, how do we deal with these situations? And what makes you confident that despite all fragility recently visible in the environment in terms of this or that, that eventually we'll cross the hump and common sense and intellect will prevail rather than what is on display right now?
Sir, I think we have to look at in 2 ways. One is the short term, and the second is the long term. So short term, this industry is a very large opportunity as far as the domestic demand is concerned. Medium to long term, it's going to be a massive opportunity for exports. And why we are extremely confident on both the short term and the long term. When we're looking at the domestic demand, it's very clear now that whatever is going to be consumed in the country will be produced in the country. Right? Gone are the days where governments were thinking that, let's open up everything and let's give a free pass, to whoever wants to come and sell. Those days are gone. So you can be rest assured that the domestic demand will be met through domestic manufacturing. And domestic demand is amazing, right? In terms of, let's say, if you look at just, as I mentioned, IT hardware, $15 billion worth of domestic demand. And also now we haven't even scratched the surface as far as data centers are concerned. So you can look at the kind of demand that will be there in times to come. The long-term picture is for the exports that we're talking about, right? And there I feel that what is happening now is just hard negotiations. Because eventually how this all started was US looking at an alternative to our neighbor. And even today, it's a misnomer or, it's misunderstanding that, they have a better duty structure than us. No. What was agreed upon yesterday for holding an abeyance for 90 days was a duty of extra 50% on top of 54%. Plus the fentanyl tax. That means you're talking about 124% duty if this would have not happened yesterday. Even today, when we look at products like mobile phones, India and Vietnam are at zero duty, thanks to the exemption list, and China is still at 20%. The fentanyl tax has not been exempted on mobile phones. So this difference of duties and tariffs is going to stay. I'm sure it's just going to be negotiated in maybe month, or maybe it might take longer, but eventually it will settle down. And sir, ultimately the long-term fundamentals are, it's this thing is with India, we have a right to win. The large market, the large pool of labor, right? The skill set available in the country, the GVCs who have come here, the partnerships that we've done with some of these companies. So all these, things are going to play out, very positively in the long term.
But challenge of our competitor like China with the duty structure that you mentioned, 54 plus 50, and potentially retarding kind of structure with that kind of situation, is not our competitive strength. Our competitive strength would be that based on what is applicable structure in general, today it is country specific. Logically, any trade arrangement should be product and particular category specific. So rules have been violently turned upside by the policemen of the world, But ultimately, if these changes, as whimsically they are brought in, they can be withdrawn. And to that extent, how do we assure ourselves that these arrangements are more iron cast and based on rationality rather than temperamental behavior of some people there?
Sir, eventually, if we have to be globally competitive, like I said, it'll come down to a few things. Very large scale, supply chain in control, right? And the skill set and the design, right? And if you see, all three are kind of work in progress, right? We are setting up great big factories which are going to be the most efficient. The supply chain has started coming in, right? And over a period of time, if you get one or two more large GVCs or large brands to come and invest in India, you'll have an amazing supply chain, right? And you've seen that in auto components today, we were with Piyush ji at the CII conference, and he was saying that auto component in one industry, which comes to me and says, "Ki aap sir, aap sabse zero duty kara do, FTA sabse kar do, we have no problem." Right? So what I'm trying to say is that once these parameters fall into place, you can be globally competitive without any sort of tariffs, without any sort of duty advantages. You don't need nothing. You can export anywhere in the world. And I think today we are seeing that our auto component companies are exporting, to brands like Tesla. So that's amazing. And this is what we aspire to be. And I can assure you that we will get there in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you.
So we understand from the center, obviously there's a lot of support for industry. What is the situation as far as various states are concerned? Are they equally supportive in terms of your endeavors? And what is the ground level situation as far as skilled labor is concerned? Because I believe that's a big challenge that many of the manufacturing companies are facing nowadays.
So to me, this is the biggest change that has happened, a positive change, where now states are competing against each other to attract investments into the state, and especially in electronic manufacturing. And that way, electronic manufacturing can bring about a big change in the society. So you'll be happy to know, sir, that in our Tirupati factory and our Chennai factory, we have 85% women workforce, right? And same is the number in Tirupati. So it's a big social change that is happening. And as I mentioned, a lot of states are, now trying to ensure that, that they attract investments into the country. And recently you would have seen that as soon as the center announced a 50% capex subsidy on the electronic components, within days, 3 states announced that we'll just match this. So I think this is something that what we see again in China, where, the provinces really, right from the start to the finish, they hold your hand and they say, okay, that, we don't have to, it's a single window, you don't have to go anywhere. That has started happening. We see a big change in UP, where there is a complete transformation which has happened. To your point on the skills availability or the labor availability, so there are some pockets now where we are starting to see shortage of manpower. But these are pockets where there is large industry like Noida or Chennai. Again, there is a big shortage. But I think what we've started to do now, we ourselves are setting up centers of excellence for skill training. And now we are setting up these centers in small towns, where people are looking for job opportunities. So we're training them close to their home. And once they're ready, we take them, to find a job or to give them a short job at our factories or some other factories. So I think even on the skill side, there are going to be a lot of partnerships that are going to be happening. The government and industry are going to work together. Government and the academia, the industry and academia are going to work together. And we ourselves, as I mentioned, are in the process of setting up centers of excellence.
What is the status of, I mean, I believe now robotics is becoming big and big in the US, and that's supposed to be the reason why US can become big manufacturing with the use of AI and with the use of robotics. And how do you see that panning out for you in the sense that today we are becoming very big in manufacturing, but there is a labor arbitrage. But how far are we away from robotics becoming a challenge for us?
So, sir, as I mentioned that, the factories in the next 5 years are going to be very, very different from what we see now. And of course, AI, robotics will play a very, very major change. And we ourselves are investing heavily on the digital transformation side. But I feel automation is still a while away. So if you see Foxconn factory in China, in a single location, they have 200,000 people at one particular factory, right? That's massive. So in spite of all the automation, it's still very labor intensive, and I see that happening in India. And still the return ratios on automation are still not that great because of the low labor cost. So it's going to take some time.
So I'll just bring in the last question. With about 60 million phones in a couple of years, will be roughly 45-50% of the outsourced Android market. Are you excited about, is there a way to get into Apple ecosystem? And does Apple work with multiple partners in any country? What has been your experience?
So, I won't comment on a particular brand, but I think if you see the history of how, this particular brand has started off, well, they tied up with someone for components, sub-assemblies, and then gradually it leads to, the finished product. And Apple has gone on to record on saying that they want to encourage Indian promoters, Indian companies to come up and tie up with them for the ecosystem. And Dixon, hopefully being one of the, Indian companies that is, on that list, hopefully there would be opportunities in times to come. And, we have to make sure that we are there. And once we have a component system going, that who knows, it could lead to anything, yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your presence over here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the enlightening session. Now we'll request Nirav to felicitate Mr. Vachani.